In the golden haze of a Kansas sunset, where the endless fields of wheat whispered secrets to the wind, Claire Baker stood at the threshold of a life she never imagined. Her skin a rich mahogany, kissed by the relentless sun of rural toil, bore the faint lines of worry etched from years of quiet endurance. At 25, she was a woman forged in the fires of humility, firm, unyielding, yet tender as the first bloom of spring. Her father, Elijah, lay frail in their modest farmhouse. His breath labored from a heart condition that demanded a surgery far beyond their means. The bills piled like autumn leaves, and Claire could only scrape together fragments of hope with her part-time job at the local diner. It was then that fate disguised as an elderly stranger intervened. Elias Green, a silver-haired patriarch with eyes sharp as polished steel, arrived unannounced one crisp afternoon. He spoke of his grandson Daniel, a man he described as good-hearted, but adrift burdened by family expectations. Elias's health was also failing. His final wish was a union to secure his legacy. "Marry my boy," he implored Claire, his voice trembling yet resolute. "In return, I'll ensure your father's care. It's not charity, it's a bond of souls." Claire hesitated, her dark curls framing a face alive with conflict. She had dreams of her own, escaping to the city, pursuing the jazz melodies that danced in her soul, inspired by the legends of Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday. But love for her father outweighed ambition. With a nod that sealed her destiny, she agreed. The wedding was a blur of simplicity. In a small county courthouse, the air thick with the scent of aged wood and fresh ink. Daniel Green appeared as promised, a tall, broad-shouldered white man in his late 20s, his features chiseled like a statue from some forgotten Renaissance master. His emerald eyes held a depth that unnerved her, a quiet intensity beneath his tailored suit hinting at unspoken worlds. He was polite, almost distant, reciting vows, with a voice smooth as aged bourbon. "I married you because of Grandpa's order," he murmured afterward, slipping a ring onto her finger with fingers that lingered just a moment too long. "But I'll be responsible for you." Claire felt an unbidden and confusing flutter in her chest, a spark amid the practicality. He handed her a sleek black credit card, no password required, and promised to return from an urgent business trip abroad. "I'll contact you," he said, his gaze softening as it met hers, dark and luminous, like polished obsidian. As Daniel vanished into the horizon bound for distant shores, Claire packed her meager belongings and relocated to New York City, where Elias resided in a modest brownstone that belied his family's hidden affluence. The city assaulted her senses, the cacophony of honking taxis, the towering skyscrapers that scraped the heavens, the diverse throng of faces where her blackness blended, yet stood out in subtle, unspoken ways. She refused to touch the card instead, securing a job as a cleaner at Green Enterprises, a gleaming corporate empire in Manhattan. The work was grueling, scrubbing floors until her hands ached, enduring sidelong glances from suited executives who saw her as invisible labor. But it preserved her dignity, allowing her to send money home for Elijah's mounting needs. Elias became her anchor, his stories of Daniel painting a portrait of a man torn between duty and desire. "He's got a good character. Handsome, too." Elias chuckled one evening over tea, his wrinkled hands clasping hers. "You saved me by agreeing to this. He'll treat you well." Claire smiled faintly, her mind wandering to Daniel's brief touch at the altar. Was it mere obligation or something more? Nights found her alone in the guest room, fingers tracing the ring's cool metal, wondering about the stranger who was now her husband. She composed jazz riffs on an old keyboard. Elias gifted her. The notes a balm for her solitude, soulful improvisations that echoed her heritage, blending melancholy with defiant joy. 3 years blurred into a rhythm of quiet resolve. Claire visited Elijah often, watching his health stabilize under mysterious benefactors' funds she attributed to Elias's generosity. At work, she faced the undercurrents of prejudice. A co-worker once muttered about affirmative action, hires her words laced with venom that stung like salt on an open wound. Yet Claire rose above her grace, turning heads in subtle ways. She volunteered at a local jazz club on weekends, her voice a velvet caress over piano keys, drawing admirers who saw the fire in her eyes. Then whispers of Daniel's return rippled through the air. Elias's eyes lit up like stars. He's coming back, Claire, after all this time. Her heart raced, a mix of anticipation and dread. What if he regretted the union? What if his absence had bred indifference? The night before his arrival, she lay awake, the city's neon glow filtering through the curtains, imagining his face. In her dreams, he was no longer distant. His arms enveloped her in a warmth that felt like homecoming. Daniel's plane touched down at JFK under a stormy sky, his mind a whirlwind of corporate conquests and unspoken longings. As CEO of Green Enterprises, he had built an empire from shadows, his white privilege, a double-edged sword that opened doors, yet isolated him. The marriage to Claire had been an expedient promise to Elias, but her image lingered, a black woman of quiet strength, her beauty not in fragility, but in unyielding poise. Abroad, he had monitored her discreetly, ensuring her father's surgery was funded anonymously. She's self-reliant, he mused to his assistant Felipe, a loyal confidant. I admire that. Arriving at the brownstone, Daniel found Claire in the kitchen, her apron dusted with flour from baking Elias's favorite pie. She turned in time suspended. Her curls framed a face more radiant than memory, allowed her complete lips curving in a tentative smile. "Welcome back," she said softly, her voice a melody that stirred something primal in him. Elias beamed from his armchair. "See? I told you she'd take good care of things." That evening, as rain pattered against windows, Daniel and Claire shared a meal with awkward silences and stolen glances. He admitted, "I've been away too long," his hand brushing hers as he passed the salt, a touch electric, sending shivers down her spine. "But I'm here now." Claire nodded, her heart whispering possibilities. Yet duty called. Daniel excused himself to his study, poring over reports from Green Enterprises. Unbeknownst to her, he was the architect of her workplace, watching from afar. The next morning, Claire rushed to work, her mind abuzz. At Green Enterprises, a buzz greeted her. "Mr. Green is back." She glimpsed him in the lobby, tall, commanding, his suit impeccably tailored. Their eyes met briefly, a spark of recognition she dismissed as a coincidence. Little did she know, this was the dawn of revelations, where secrets would unravel like threads in a tapestry of fate. As days unfolded, Claire's life subtly intertwined with Daniel's. Elias's health improved, and he confided in her. "Daniel's been funding your father's care. He's a man of his word." Shock rippled through her. Gratitude bloomed into something warmer. One evening, Daniel returned late, exhaustion etching his features. "How was your day?" he asked, his voice a gentle rumble. Claire shared snippets of her cleaning shifts, omitting the prejudices. "Tiring but fulfilling," she replied, her eyes meeting his in a gaze that lingered heavy with unspoken desire. In quiet moments, Daniel reflected on Claire's resilience, her blackness, a beacon of strength in a world that often diminished. It captivated him. He yearned to bridge the gap, to reveal his true self. But caution held him back, fear that his wealth would overshadow a genuine connection. Claire, too, felt the pull. His kindness and subtle protectiveness ignited a flame she dared not name. One fateful night, Elias gathered them. "You've honored my wish," he said, his voice frail. "Now, honor each other." Daniel and Claire sat by the fire as he retired the crackling flames, mirroring the heat between them. "Tell me about yourself," Daniel urged, his fingers inches from hers. Claire spoke of her jazz dreams, her voice weaving tales of rhythm and blues. He listened entranced, sharing fragments of his travels, omitting his empire. Their laughter echoed the bridge forming over the chasm of separation. Yet shadows loomed. Claire overheard a phone call, Daniel mentioning a business trip extension. Doubt crept in. Was this marriage a mere obligation? She retreated to her room, fingers tracing the credit card she had never used, vowing to stand alone. Daniel, sensing her withdrawal, ached to confess. The union born of sacrifice teetered on the edge of deeper secrets, promising a love as vast as the Kansas plains. The relentless pulse of New York City enveloped Claire Baker, like a lover's embrace, turned possessive, thrilling, yet suffocating. 3 years into her marriage, the skyscrapers that once awed her now cast long shadows over her daily grind at Green Enterprises. Her mornings began in the pre-dawn hush, commuting from Elias's brownstone to the gleaming tower in Midtown Manhattan, where she donned her cleaner's uniform like armor against the world's judgments. The scent of lemon polish mingled with the faint aroma of expensive colognes as she scrubbed executive suites, her mind a sanctuary of jazz improvisations that drowned out the isolation. At work, the undercurrents of prejudice surged like a turbulent river. Melinda Hayes, a sharp-tongued manager with a pedigree from old Atlanta money, led the charge. "Look at her thinking she can blend in," Melinda sneered one afternoon in the break room, her voice dripping with condescension as Claire mopped nearby. "Rural folk like you belong in the fields, not here." The words landed like blows, evoking the racial slights Claire had endured since arriving. Subtle exclusions, assumptions of incompetence tied to her skin's hue. Yet she held her head high, her dignity a quiet rebellion. "I earn my place," she replied evenly, her eyes flashing with the fire of ancestors who had overcome far worse. Unseen, Daniel Green observed from his penthouse office that his role as CEO was a veil he maintained meticulously. Returned from abroad, he had assigned Claire to his personal suite, a decision born of curiosity and burgeoning affection. Through security feeds, he watched her diligence, how she hummed soft jazz tunes while working her movements graceful as a dancer's. "She's remarkable," he confided to Felipe, his trusted aide, a Hispanic man whose loyalty spanned decades. "But she mustn't know yet." Once guarded by walls of wealth and privilege, Daniel's heart cracked open at her resilience. He admired how her blackness shone in a space dominated by sameness, a reminder of the diversity he championed in boardrooms, but yearned for personally. Elijah's health crisis escalated on a crisp autumn day. Claire received the call at work. "It's worsening. Surgery now, or—" Her world tilted. Rushing to the hospital, she agonized over using Daniel's card, pride warring with desperation. "Dad, I'll find a way," she whispered, holding his hand, her voice a soothing lullaby amid beeps and sterile scents. At the office, whispers reached Daniel Johnston's dad, critical. "Costs a fortune." He acted swiftly, anonymously, wiring $280,000, framing it as a company benevolence fund. "She's family," he told Felipe, the word tasting like promise on his tongue. A peculiar elevation marked Claire's return to work. "You're on the executive floor now," her supervisor announced, puzzled. As she entered Daniel's office for the first time, the space overwhelmed her, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Hudson River modern art, evoking stormy seas. She cleaned meticulously, pausing at a photo of Daniel with Elias, her husband's face stirring a warmth she attributed to marital duty. Little did she know, Daniel lingered in an adjacent room, his breath catching at her proximity. She's more than I remembered, he thought, recalling their wedding's fleeting intimacy. Bullying intensified with Trina Hayes' arrival. Melinda's cousin, a poised white woman from Atlanta's elite circles, childhood friend of Daniel. Trina eyed Claire with disdain. "Who's this?" The help she quipped during a lobby encounter, her tone laced with racial undertones that made Claire's blood simmer. "I'm Claire Baker," she responded firmly, refusing to shrink. Trina's jealousy simmered. Rumors of Daniel's secret affection pointed to her, but his distant politeness fueled her delusions. A pivotal incident unfolded when Claire delayed cleaning to aid an elderly client lost in the building, a Southern gentleman en route to a meeting. "Thank you, dear," he said, his gratitude genuine. Returning late, she faced Melinda's wrath, slacking off. Typical. The confrontation escalated. Melinda's insults veered into outright bigotry, calling rural blacks tricky and useless. Claire's slap rang out a defiant crack against oppression. Daniel, alerted, intervened like a storm. "Enough," he commanded, his presence commanding. Revealing the client's praise, he turned the tide. Her kindness secured our deal. Melinda's bonus vanished. Claire's doubled. "Well done," Daniel murmured privately, his eyes holding hers in a gaze that sent sparks through her veins. That evening at the brownstone, Elias shared news. "Daniel's back tonight." Claire's pulse quickened. He arrived bearing a gift, a delicate jazz record from his travels. "For you," he said softly, their fingers brushing in a touch that lingered electric. Dinner was intimate laughter, weaving through conversations of dreams deferred. "You've cared for Grandpa so well." Daniel praised his admiration genuine. Claire blushed the compliment, a balm on her wounds. Yet doubts lingered. Overhearing Trina's flirtatious call to Daniel, "I've missed you." Claire's heart ached. Was she merely a placeholder? Daniel, sensing her reserve, yearned to confess his guardianship. As night fell, he lay awake, envisioning a future where shadows lifted their union, blooming into passion. Claire played the record in her room, the saxophone's wail mirroring her longing. A guardian, unseen love, unspoken, in the city's unforgiving embrace. The New York City skyline shimmered like a lover's promise under the autumn moon, its lights casting a silver glow across the brownstone, where Claire Baker stood at a crossroads of heart and duty. 3 years had passed since her marriage to Daniel Green, a union born of necessity rather than ardor. Yet the weight of his absence had woven threads of longing into her soul. Her skin, a deep ebony that glowed with quiet resilience, bore the subtle scars of city life, racial slights at Green Enterprises, where she toiled as a cleaner, and the ache of tending to Daniel's grandfather, Elias, with unwavering devotion. Tonight, Daniel was returning, and the air hummed with anticipation, as delicate as a jazz ballad's opening notes. Claire lingered in the kitchen, her hands kneading dough for Elias's favorite cornbread, the rhythm soothing her racing heart. Her dark curls, loosely tied, framed a face where hope and trepidation danced in equal measure. She wore the simple ring Daniel had given her. Its cool metal reminded her of vows spoken in haste. "What if he's changed?" she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the city's distant pulse. Her dreams of jazz stardom, born in Kansas, dives where she'd sung Ella Fitzgerald's melodies, felt distant now, overshadowed by the weight of survival and sacrifice. Yet Daniel's fleeting touch at their wedding lingered in her memory, a spark that refused to fade. Elias, his eyes twinkling like stars in a Midwest sky, shuffled into the room. "He's home tonight, Claire," he said, his voice warm with pride. "You've kept this old man company, but now it's time to know your husband." Claire's smile faltered. her mind swirling with doubts. Had Daniel's 3-year absence dulled his regard for her? Was she merely a duty, a promise to a dying grandfather? She pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the cornbread's golden crust, its aroma a small offering of love. The door creaked open, and Daniel entered like a storm breaking over calm waters. His presence filled the room, tall, broad-shouldered, his white skin contrasting sharply with the tailored navy suit that hugged his frame. His emerald eyes deep as forest pools met hers, and for a moment time suspended. "Claire," he said softly, his voice a velvet caress that sent shivers down her spine. "I'm sorry I've been gone so long." The words carried a weight she couldn't decipher. Regret, perhaps, or something more profound. Elias beamed, ushering them to the dining table where candlelight flickered like whispered secrets. Dinner was a delicate dance of silences and stolen glances. Daniel spoke of his travels, vague tales of European cities and Asian markets, omitting the truth of his role as CEO of Green Enterprises. Claire shared fragments of her life caring for Elias and her quiet pride in funding her father's recovery through her labor. Their hands brushed as they passed dishes, each touch igniting a warmth that made her heart stutter. "You've done so much," Daniel murmured, his gaze lingering on her full lips, the curve of her cheek. She blushed the compliment, a melody she longed to believe. Yet the night held its tensions. Daniel offered to sleep in the guest room as they cleared the table. "I know it's been years," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "I want you to feel safe." Claire nodded, her throat tight. His chivalry stirred her, yet it widened the chasm between them. Was he distant out of respect or indifference? She retired to her room, her fingers tracing the jazz record he'd gifted her, its soulful strains echoing her unspoken yearning. In his study, Daniel pored over reports, his mind on Claire, her grace strength, the way her blackness shone like a beacon in his world of privilege. He ached to confess his identity, but fear held him back. Would wealth taint the fragile bond between them? The next morning, Claire rushed to work, her mind a whirlwind. At Green Enterprises, the lobby buzzed with whispers. Mr. Green's back. She glimpsed him, a commanding figure in a charcoal suit, his presence magnetic. Their eyes met briefly, a spark of recognition she dismissed as wishful thinking. But fate conspired otherwise. Claire overslept, her exhaustion from late-night worries betraying her. She forgot her ID badge, which was a critical error in the company's strict protocols. Ever her champion, Elias arrived at the towering glass building, his frail hands clutching the badge. "Can't let my girl be stranded," he chuckled, his eyes warm. The lobby became a stage for cruelty. Melinda Hayes, a manager with venom in her smile, barred Claire's entry. "No card, no entry." She sneered, her words laced with disdain for Claire's rural roots and dark skin. "You think you belong here?" The taunt drew a crowd, colleagues whispering about uppity cleaners. Elias stepped forward, his voice sharp. "She's family." Melinda laughed, mocking his shabby appearance. "Your family's nothing here." She spat, her prejudice raw. Claire's heart pounded, her dignity under siege. Then Daniel appeared, his presence a thunderclap. "What's happening?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the din. Melinda faltered, but a junior employee, emboldened, insulted Elias as a lowly peasant. Claire's hand lashed out a slap born of fury and love. Daniel's eyes blazed. "She's my wife," he declared, the words a revelation that stunned the crowd. He fired the offender on the spot, his authority absolute. Turning to Claire, he softened. "No one disrespects you or Grandpa." Her breath caught the word wife, a melody she hadn't dared hope for. In the aftermath, Daniel proposed a pact: keep their marriage secret at work, to shield her from gossip. Claire agreed, her heart torn between gratitude and confusion. Why hide it? She wondered, her mind conjuring images of Trina Hayes, Daniel's childhood friend, whose flirtatious calls she'd overheard. Trina's polished beauty and Atlanta pedigree loomed like a specter, whispering that Claire, with her Midwest simplicity, could never compete. That evening, back at the brownstone, Elias sensed her turmoil. "He's a good man, Claire," he said, squeezing her hand. "Give him time." She nodded, but doubt lingered like a minor chord in her jazz riffs. Daniel, meanwhile, watched her from the hallway, his heart aching to bridge the gap. He envisioned a future where their secrets dissolved and her voice would sing in clubs, and his life. As Claire played her keyboard, her notes weaving tales of love and loss, the city's pulse seemed to whisper. This homecoming was only the beginning, a prelude to more profound truths. In the heart of Manhattan, where ambition and envy intertwined like ivy on ancient walls, Claire Baker navigated her days with the grace of a jazz melody, smooth yet punctuated by sharp, unexpected notes. The revelation of her marriage to Daniel Green, the enigmatic CEO of Green Enterprises, had ignited a firestorm of whispers within the glass and steel empire. Though their union remained a guarded secret at work, the weight of it pressed against Claire's heart, a delicate tension between duty and the blossoming ache of desire. Her ebony skin, radiant under the fluorescent lights, marked her as both an outsider and a quiet force, her resilience a beacon in a world that often sought to dim her light. The office buzzed with the new rhythm rumors of Daniel's longtime lover, a title falsely bestowed upon Trina Hayes, his childhood friend from Atlanta's elite circles. With her porcelain complexion and honeyed drawl, Trina glided through Green Enterprises like a queen claiming her court. Her presence was a constant thorn, her smiles laced with condescension as she passed Claire in the halls. "Still scrubbing floors, darling," Trina quipped one morning, her eyes glinting with malice. Claire's jaw tightened, but she held her tongue, her pride forged in Kansas fields, where she'd learned to weather storms. "I do my job well," she replied, her voice steady, though her heart stung from the racial undertones, a reminder of the barriers she faced as a black woman in corporate America. Daniel, from his lofty office, watched Claire with a tenderness that bordered on reverence. His white privilege, a mantle he wore with quiet unease, contrasted with her strength, her ability to rise above prejudice with dignity. He yearned to protect her, to reveal the depth of his feelings, but the secrecy of their marriage tethered him to caution. Instead, he expressed his care through subtle gestures, a promotion to his personal cleaning team, a quiet nod of approval as she worked. One evening, he gave her a gift, a delicate necklace, its pendant, and a tiny silver saxophone that gleamed like a star. "For your music," he said, his fingers brushing hers as he fastened it, the touch sending a shiver through her veins. "It reminded me of you." Claire's breath caught her eyes, searching his for truth. Was this affection or obligation? The gift sparked envy's flame. Overhearing colleagues' whispers about the necklace, Trina confronted Claire in the break room. Trying to climb the ladder with trinkets, she sneered, her words dripping with insinuation. "Daniel's mine, always has been." Claire's heart twisted at the rumor of Daniel's lover gaining weight. She recalled Trina's late-night calls to Daniel, their familiarity a blade against her confidence. "I don't compete for what's not mine," Claire retorted, her voice a low, soulful note, but doubt crept in like a discordant chord. Did Daniel's heart belong to Trina, his polished equal? The arrival of Aunt Lydia, Daniel's godmother from Atlanta, shifted the narrative. Lydia, a Southern heiress with a warm smile and sharp wit, swept into Green Enterprises like a summer breeze, her presence commanding yet kind. Claire, assigned to escort her, found solace in Lydia's stories of jazz clubs and civil rights marches, their shared heritage, a quiet bond. But Trina saw an opportunity. "Please stay away from her," she hissed at Claire, her jealousy raw. "You're just the help." Trina's fury erupted when Claire assisted Lydia after a stumble in the lobby. "You're fired," she declared, her voice echoing with privilege. "Low-class cleaners don't belong here." The confrontation drew a crowd, the air thick with tension. Claire stood tall, her eyes blazing. "Kindness isn't class-bound," she said, her words a defiance rooted in her ancestor strength. Lydia, witnessing the exchange, intervened. "This woman saved me," she declared, her voice cutting through the din. "You'd do well to learn from her." Daniel arrived, his presence a storm breaking over calm waters. He said, "No one fires my staff without cause," his gaze locking on Claire, a silent promise in his eyes. "Trina, your prejudice has no place here." He reinstated Claire his authority absolute, and privately gifted her a custom ring, a sapphire set in gold, its hue matching her eyes. "Wear it hidden," he whispered, tucking it behind her collar, his fingers grazing her skin in a touch that ignited her soul. Claire's heart warred with itself. The ring, the necklace, these were tokens of care, yet Trina's claims echoed in her mind. At the brownstone, Elias sensed her turmoil. "Daniel's heart is true," he said, his voice a gentle anchor. "Trust what you feel." Claire nodded, but the city's whispers followed her. One night, she overheard Trina's voice on Daniel's phone. "I'm still here for you, darling." The words cut deep, a reminder of her perceived inadequacy. A black woman from Kansas, no match for Atlanta's elite. Yet Daniel's actions spoke louder. He began lingering at home, sharing quiet evenings where their laughter wove a fragile tapestry. One night, as rain pattered against the windows, he played Claire's jazz record, his eyes soft. "Sing for me," he urged. Her voice rose rich and soulful, filling the room with dreams of Harlem nights. Daniel watched, entranced, his hand reaching for hers. "You're extraordinary," he said, his voice husky. The moment hung like a suspended note, their fingers entwined, hearts inching closer. But shadows loomed. Trina's influence grew, her rumors spreading like wildfire. "Daniel's in love with me." Colleagues whispered, their eyes pitying Claire. She retreated inward, her jazz riffs turning melancholic. Sensing her distance, Daniel ached to confess his identity and love. He planned a surprise, a chance to hear her sing at a local jazz club, a stage for her brilliance. As Claire practiced her voice, a beacon of hope, the city's pulse seemed to whisper. Love was near, but jealousy's claws were sharper still. The Manhattan skyline shimmered like a jazz riff under the October stars, its rhythm pulsing through the glass towers of Green Enterprises, where Claire Baker stood on the precipice of transformation. Her life, once a quiet melody of survival, now thrummed with the electric tension of her secret marriage to Daniel Green, the enigmatic billionaire, whose emerald eyes held promises she dared not fully trust. As a black woman from rural Kansas, Claire had carved her place in this unforgiving city with resilience, her ebony skin a canvas of strength against the corporate world's subtle prejudices. Yet within her burned a passion for jazz, a soulful legacy of her heritage that had once carried her to the cusp of stardom before a bitter betrayal stole her dreams. The office buzzed with a new undercurrent, a high-stakes deal for the Hudson Valley Development Project, a sprawling initiative that could redefine Green Enterprises' legacy. Daniel, cloaked in his CEO persona, orchestrated the negotiations with a quiet intensity, but his heart lingered on Claire. Her grace under pressure and defiance against Trina Hayes's venomous slights deepened his admiration into something perilously close to love. He watched her from afar, her cleaning duties now a cover for his desire to keep her near her voice. Humming soft jazz tunes as she worked a melody that stirred his soul. Trouble arrived in the form of Brian Carter, a former classmate from Claire's Kansas youth, now a smug executive with a grudge. His voice cut through the din in the company cafeteria like a discordant note. Claire Baker, still chasing dreams. He sneered, his eyes raking over her uniform. I heard you seduced judges at that national jazz competition. Disqualified for your charms. The accusation stung, reviving memories of a rigged contest where lies had overshadowed her talent. Claire's fists clenched, her voice steady but sharp. You spread those lies, Brian. I never needed tricks to shine. Her defiance drew stares, but the wound reopened, a reminder of her fall from grace. The Hudson deal took a dramatic turn when a rival firm led by a brash tycoon named Tim Allen proposed a public music competition to settle the contract. Modern beats against your old-school jazz. Tim taunted, his words dripping with condescension. Trina volunteered to lead Green Enterprises' team, eager to claim Daniel's favor, her Atlanta pedigree, boasting a polished pop ensemble. I'll win this for you, she purred to Daniel, her hand grazing his arm. Claire, overhearing, felt a pang of jealousy, her heart whispering doubts about Daniel's true affections. Was Trina, with her wealth and whiteness, the woman he truly desired? The competition was set for a grand gala at a Hudson Valley estate, its sprawling lawns lit by chandeliers that rivaled the stars. Trina's team took the stage first, their modern pop pulsating with synthetic energy, but lacking soul. Claire watched from the sidelines, her heart racing, as Trina faltered under pressure, her performance marred by impatience. In a fit of rage, Trina slammed her hand against a prop, injuring herself, and withdrawing in disgrace. The rival team jeered their victory, seemingly assured. Your jazz is dead. Tim mocked, his words a dagger to Claire's heritage. Daniel's eyes found Claire's in the crowd, a silent plea in their depths. We need you, he said, his voice low and urgent. Claire hesitated, her past disqualification a specter that haunted her. I haven't performed in years, she protested, her voice trembling. But Daniel's hand on her shoulder, warm and steady, ignited a spark. I believe in you, he whispered, his gaze a beacon of trust. The crowd parted, and Claire stepped into the spotlight, her simple dress transformed by the fire in her eyes. She chose a jazz standard, Summertime, whose notes are a tribute to her roots. Her rich and velvety voice wove through the air, each phrase a story of struggle and triumph. The piano, played by a local musician she'd befriended, danced with her melody, evoking Harlem's golden age. The audience swayed, captivated. Even Tim's team fell silent, their arrogance fading. Claire's performance was a rebellion, a black woman reclaiming her voice in a world that had tried to silence her. As the final note lingered, applause erupted like thunder, and Daniel's smile was a sunrise, his pride palpable. The victory secured the Hudson deal, and Daniel promoted Claire to manager on the spot, her talent undeniable. You're wasted as a cleaner, he said, his voice husky with admiration. The gala turned into a celebration, champagne flowing like laughter. Emboldened by her triumph, Claire joined colleagues in toasts, her guard lowering under the wine's warmth. Daniel, ever watchful, joined her, their laughter mingling as they danced under the stars. The night blurred, and in a haze of revelry, they stumbled to a private suite, their bodies close, their breaths entwined. Claire's heart sang, but the alcohol clouded her senses, leaving only fragments of intimacy, a kiss, a touch, a whispered promise. Morning brought a haze of confusion. Claire awoke alone, her dress askew, the memory of Daniel's warmth lingering like a half-remembered song. Had they crossed a line? Her heart fluttered with hope, but doubt crept in. Did he love her, or was it the wine's illusion? Daniel wrestled with his own memories in his office, his desire for Claire warring with his vow to protect their secret. The victory was theirs, but the night's intimacy was a melody yet to be resolved, its notes promising love and turmoil. The crisp November air wove through Manhattan streets, carrying the scent of roasted chestnuts and the faint echo of jazz from hidden clubs. Claire Baker, newly minted manager at Green Enterprises, stood at a crossroads where triumph met trepidation. Her victory in the Hudson Valley music competition had elevated her from cleaner to corporate star, her ebony radiance now a beacon in the boardrooms. Yet her heart stirred by the blurred intimacy of that gala night with Daniel Green. Her secret billionaire husband trembled under the weight of unspoken truths. His emerald eyes, once distant, now held a warmth that both thrilled and terrified her, a promise of love shadowed by the specter of misunderstanding. Claire's new office, a sleek space overlooking the Hudson River, was a testament to her rise. Yet as she reviewed project files, her body betrayed her with a wave of nausea. Over a month ago, her last period whispered possibilities she dared not voice. "Could I be?" She murmured, her fingers trembling over a pregnancy test hidden in her purse. The gala night, clouded by champagne and passion, replayed in fragments, a kiss that tasted of starlight. Daniel's hands pulling her close. The test confirmed her fears, 2 lines stark and undeniable. Her heart soared and sank in equal measure. A child with Daniel could bind them, but his rumored love for Trina Hayes, the Atlanta heiress, cast a shadow. Would he reject their baby, seeing her as an obligation rather than a beloved? At Green Enterprises, gossip swirled like autumn leaves, her elegance a mask for venom. Trina fueled rumors of Daniel's devotion to her. "He's always loved me," she boasted in the break room, her voice a blade aimed at Claire. Colleagues whispered, their pitying glances cutting deeper than words. One said, "Poor Claire, thinking she could compete unaware of her marriage." Claire's pride, forged in Kansas resilience, held firm, but her heart ached. She avoided Daniel. Her smiles guarded her jazz riffs at home, turning mournful, each note a lament for a love she feared was unrequited. Daniel, meanwhile, wrestled with his own turmoil. The gala night had awakened a longing he could no longer deny. Claire's voice, strength, and beauty had woven themselves into his soul. Yet the morning after, he'd found a single earring in his suite, a glittering mermaid's tears design, custom-made by Sweet Ice. It wasn't Claire's, and the discovery gnawed at him. Had another woman slipped into his room, exploiting his drunken haze? He confided in Felipe, his loyal assistant. "Find her," he ordered, his voice tight. "I won't let this ruin what's growing with Claire." His fear was palpable. A schemer could claim his child, threatening the fragile bond he cherished. The earring mystery deepened when Claire noticed a similar pair on Lynn, a junior employee with a penchant for flirtation. "Pretty right," Lynn chirped, twirling the replica. "Tyler gave them to me." Tyler, Claire's childhood friend and a security guard, had always been like a brother, but his gift raised questions. Had he been in her room that night, Claire confronted him, her voice soft but firm. "Tyler, these earrings, they're tied to something serious." He blushed, admitting he'd bought them as a gesture of support, unaware of their significance. "I'd never betray you," he said, his eyes earnest. Claire believed him, but the seed of doubt sprouted. Trina seized the chaos, spreading venomous rumors. "Claire's seducing married men," she hissed to colleagues, reviving Brian's old lies about the jazz competition. "She's a homewrecker using her looks." The accusations, laced with racial undertones, stung like salt on an open wound. Claire overheard, her heart fracturing. "I'm married," she retorted, her voice a quiet storm. But Trina's laughter echoed, sowing discord. The office became a battlefield. Claire's blackness, a target for those who saw her rise as undeserved. Daniel's investigation intensified. He interrogated Lynn, who confessed the earrings were fakes, a cheap imitation. "I thought they'd impress you," she stammered, tears falling. Daniel's anger flared. Her deception had endangered Claire. "You're done here," he said, firing her. However, the true blow came when Claire overheard his plans to deal with any woman who claimed his child. Standing outside his office, her heart shattered. "He'd reject our baby," she thought, her hand resting on her stomach. The fear of raising a child alone, judged as a black single mother, overwhelmed her. She drafted a resignation letter and a divorce agreement, her pen trembling with resolve. That evening at the brownstone, Elias sensed her despair. He urged the child to talk to him, his voice a gentle anchor. Claire shook her head, tears falling. "He doesn't trust me, Grandpa. I can't stay in a marriage built on doubt." She packed a bag, her jazz records left behind like abandoned dreams. Daniel, returning home, found her note. "I need time. I'm sorry." His heart sank, the weight of his secrecy crushing him. He raced to her office, finding only Felipe, who handed him the divorce papers. "She heard you, sir," Felipe said gravely about the child. Daniel's world tilted. He'd misjudged her silence, mistaking it for coldness, when it was fear. The earring, the rumors, his own guarded heart, each had built a wall between them. He vowed to find her, to confess the truth. His love had grown from duty to devotion. Her strength, a melody he couldn't live without. As Claire boarded a train to Kansas, her heart heavy with loss, the city's lights blurred through her tears. The illusion of their marriage had fractured, but the notes of their love lingered, a haunting refrain promising redemption. The Hudson Valley in late November glowed like a lover's promise, its rolling hills draped in amber and crimson, a canvas of autumn's fleeting embrace. Claire Baker, her heart, a tapestry of hope and heartbreak, stood at the edge of a corporate retreat, hosted by Green Enterprises, the empire of her secret husband, Daniel Green. Her recent promotion to manager, born of her triumphant jazz performance, had elevated her status, yet the weight of their fractured marriage pressed against her soul. Her ebony skin, radiant under the crisp sunlight, bore the quiet strength of a woman who had faced prejudice and risen above. Still, her dark eyes held a storm, fear of a pregnancy that wasn't, and the sting of Daniel's suspected betrayal with Trina Hayes, the Atlanta heiress, who haunted their love like a discordant note. The retreat at Moonview Resort was a glittering escape from Manhattan's relentless pulse. Villas dotted the landscape, their elegance contrasting with Claire's rural Kansas roots. As employees mingled their laughter, mingling with the clink of champagne flutes, Claire felt both seen and invisible, a black woman navigating a world of privilege. Daniel had insisted she attend, his voice soft, yet commanding over the phone. "You deserve this," he'd said, his emerald eyes haunting her memory. She agreed, hoping distance would soothe the ache of her resignation, and divorce papers left in haste after overhearing his plans to deal with a mystery woman's child. Claire's new role as manager drew admiring glances, but whispers of Trina's influence lingered. "She's still Daniel's favorite," a colleague murmured, unaware of Claire's proper place as his wife. Trina glided through the resort, her porcelain beauty a mask for malice, her eyes locking onto Claire with predatory intent. "Enjoying your little promotion?" she taunted, her drawl dripping with condescension. Claire's jaw tightened, her pride a shield. "I earned it," she replied, her voice a steady melody, though her heart quaked with doubt. Did Daniel's gifts, the saxophone necklace, the sapphire ring, mean love? Or were they tokens of guilt? Daniel, meanwhile, wrestled with his own torment. The earring mystery had unraveled, Lynn's deception exposed, but Claire's withdrawal cut deeper than any betrayal. Her divorce papers, delivered by Felipe, lay like a wound on his desk. "I've lost her," he confessed to Felipe under the villa's starlit roof, his voice raw. She thinks I don't trust her. Felipe, ever loyal, urged action. Find her, sir. Tell her the truth. Daniel's heart burned with resolve. Claire's strength, her jazz-soaked soul, had become his North Star. He planned to confront her at the retreat to lay bare his love. But shadows loomed. Trina's schemes undetected, coiled like a serpent. The retreat's first evening was a whirlwind of games and revelry. Claire, paired with colleagues for an archery contest, laughed freely, her spirit lifted by the camaraderie. Yet Trina's presence was a constant thorn, her whispers spreading poison. Claire's climbing too fast for a cleaner. The racial undertones stung, but Claire channeled her pain into grace, her arrows hitting true. Daniel watched from a distance, his heart swelling at her poise. He approached, offering a glass of wine. "You're a natural," he said, his smile warm. Their fingers brushed, a spark igniting, but Claire pulled back, her eyes guarded. "Just doing my part," she murmured, retreating to her villa. Unbeknownst to Claire, Trina had enlisted Sean, a disgraced former driver for the Hayes family, to ruin her. Fired for theft, Sean's desperation made him a willing pawn. "Make it look like she's unfaithful," Trina instructed, her voice cold as winter. "Daniel will divorce her, and I'll reward you." Sean, lurking in the resort's shadows, trailed Claire to the hot springs, where she sought solace alone. The water's steam enveloped her, her jazz hums a shield against heartache. She closed her eyes, imagining Daniel's touch from the gala night, her heart whispering, "What if he loved me?" Sean struck under the cover of dusk, his presence violating her sanctuary. "Answer me," he growled, cornering her. "Are you Daniel's wife?" Claire's heart raced, her defiance flaring. "Who sent you?" she demanded, her voice a blade. Sean's grin was menacing. "You'll see." He grabbed her arm, his intent clear to stage a compromising scene. Claire struggled, her hum becoming a cry, the jazz notes now a desperate plea. "Help!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the mist. Alerted by a staffer's report of Claire's absence, Daniel raced to the springs, his heart pounding with dread. He found Sean pinning Claire, her eyes wide with fear but fierce with fight. "Let her go!" Daniel roared, his strength a tempest as he pulled Sean away. Security swarmed, restraining the attacker, but Daniel focused on Claire. He enveloped her in his arms, her trembling form against his chest. "You're safe," he whispered, his lips grazing her forehead. Claire clung to him, tears mingling with the steam, her heart torn between relief and unresolved pain. Back at the villa, Daniel demanded answers. Sean, under pressure, confessed to Trina's plot, his words a damning crescendo. She wanted Claire ruined, he admitted, head bowed. Daniel's fury was a quiet storm, his love for Claire a fire that burned away doubt. He turned to her, his eyes pleading. "I didn't know," he said, his voice breaking. "I'd never let anyone hurt you." Claire's gaze softened, but the divorce papers lingered in her mind. "Why keep secrets, Daniel?" she asked, her voice a fragile note. He hesitated, the truth of his past love, a woman who saved him from a car crash, still unconfessed. As night fell, the retreat's festivities continued, but Claire and Daniel stood apart, their hearts entwined, yet strained. She hummed a jazz tune, its rhythm a lifeline, while he planned his next move to expose Trina and reclaim his wife. The valley's beauty masked a brewing storm, their love a melody on the verge of crescendo or collapse. The Hudson Valley's morning mist curled like a lover's sigh around Moonview Resort, where the air held the promise of revelations as delicate and dangerous as a spider's web. Claire Baker, her soul, a symphony of resilience and longing, stood on the balcony of her private villa, her ebony skin kissed by the dawn's gentle light. The near assault by Sean, orchestrated by Trina Hayes, had shaken her, but Daniel Green's fierce protection had rekindled a spark in her heart, a hope that their secret marriage frayed by mistrust could be mended. Her jazz dreams, once silenced by betrayal, now hummed within her, a melody of courage that refused to fade. Daniel the billionaire, whose white privilege masked a heart yearning for authenticity, paced his suite, the weight of his unspoken truths pressing against him. Claire's divorce papers, still unsigned, haunted his desk like a ghost. The earring mystery resolved as Lynn's deception had cleared one shadow. But the greater truth remained his love for Claire, born not of duty, but of destiny, had roots deeper than their arranged union. 3 years ago, a black woman had pulled him from a burning car in Manhattan, her face a blur, but her courage etched in his soul. He'd vowed to find her, claiming her as his lover, to ward off suitors like Trina. Could Claire be that savior? The possibility electrified him. Claire, meanwhile, grappled with her own discoveries. A hospital visit after the attack confirmed her pregnancy scare was a false alarm, a mix-up from an expired test. Relief mingled with sorrow. A child might have bound her to Daniel, but his overheard vow to deal with an unintended child had cut deep. "He doesn't want me," she whispered, her fingers tracing the sapphire ring he'd given her, now tucked beneath her collar. Yet his rescue, his tender embrace, suggested otherwise. She returned to the retreat, her manager's duties a mask for her turmoil, and her jazz hums a quiet rebellion against despair. Daniel sought her out at breakfast, the resort's dining hall alive with chatter. "Claire, we need to talk," he said, his voice a low, urgent melody. She nodded, her eyes guarded but curious, and they retreated to a secluded garden where roses bloomed in defiant splendor. "I've been a fool," he began, his emerald eyes locking onto hers. "I thought keeping secrets would protect you, but it's driven us apart." Claire's heart raced, her breath catching as he stepped closer, his hand hovering near hers. "Tell me," she urged, her voice a soft challenge. He confessed to the car crash and the mysterious woman who saved him. "I told everyone she was my lover," he said, his voice raw. "It kept Trina at bay. But it was you, Claire. The doctor confirmed it. Your name was in the report." Her eyes widened, memories flooding back, a rainy night, a stranger's life in her hands, her quick exit to avoid attention. "I didn't know it was you," she whispered, tears glistening. "I just did what was right." Daniel's hand found hers, his touch a lifeline. "You're why I agreed to marry," he said. "Grandpa's wish gave me a chance to see and love you." The words hung like a perfect chord, resonating in the quiet garden. Claire's heart soared, but doubt lingered. "What about Trina?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Everyone says you love her." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's a sister, nothing more. I've pushed her away, but she's relentless." Daniel led Claire to a private gazebo to prove his heart, where a piano awaited a surprise he'd arranged. "Play for me," he urged, his smile soft. Claire hesitated, her past disqualification a shadow, but his belief emboldened her. Her fingers danced over the keys, weaving "My Funny Valentine's" notes into a love letter to their shared pain. Daniel joined her, his voice humming low, their duet a harmony of souls. As the final note faded, he cupped her face, his lips inches from hers. "You're my home," he whispered, their breaths mingling in a prelude to a kiss. But Trina's shadow loomed. Claire overheard colleagues whispering Trina's planning something big at the closing ceremony. Her heart tightened, fearing another betrayal. Daniel, sensing her unease, vowed to end Trina's schemes. He promised, "She won't hurt you again," his hand squeezing hers. They returned to the retreat, their bond strengthened, but fragile like a melody on the verge of breaking. That evening, Claire performed at an impromptu talent show, her jazz rendition of Strange Fruit, a haunting tribute to her heritage. The crowd, once skeptical, stood in awe their applause, a validation of her worth. Daniel watched, his heart swelling with pride and love. She's unstoppable, he thought, planning a public declaration to cement their union. But as Claire bowed, a note slipped under her door. You'll never be his. The handwriting was Trina's, a chilling promise of reckoning. Claire and Daniel met under the stars, their hands entwined. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice a soft confession. But I trust you. Daniel pulled her close, his embrace a fortress. He said, we'll face her together, his lips brushing her temple. Their love, once veiled, was unveiling its notes, soaring toward a crescendo that would either bind them or break them forever. The Hudson Valley's twilight wove a tapestry of amber and indigo across Moonview Resort, where the air thrummed with the electric anticipation of a reckoning. Claire Baker stood at the heart of Green Enterprises' annual retreat, her ebony skin aglow under the soft lantern light, a beacon of resilience in a world that had tried to dim her radiance. Her secret marriage to Daniel Green, the billionaire whose emerald eyes held her heart captive, had weathered storms of misunderstanding and betrayal. As the retreat's closing ceremony loomed, their love stood on the precipice of triumph or ruin, threatened by Trina Hayes, the Atlanta heiress, whose venomous schemes had nearly shattered their bond. Claire's new role as manager had transformed her from an overlooked cleaner to a corporate star, yet the weight of Trina's malice lingered like a discordant note. The near assault by Sean, Trina's hired thug, had exposed her cruelty, but Claire sensed a final gambit brewing. Her jazz-soaked soul, rooted in Kansas resilience and Black heritage, hummed with quiet defiance as she prepared for the evening's gala. Dressed in a sapphire gown that hugged her curves, the color echoing Daniel's ring tucked beneath her collar, she felt like a melody, reborn, a woman ready to claim her place. Daniel, his white privilege, a mantle he wore with increasing unease, orchestrated a plan to unmask Trina. The revelation that Claire was his car crash savior had cemented his love, a flame that burned through the shadows of secrecy. He'd lured Trina to the gala with a false promise of a proposal, a trap to expose her treachery. She'll pay for hurting you, he vowed to Claire in their villa, his voice a low, fervent promise. His hand grazed her cheek, igniting a warmth that made her heart stutter. You're my everything, he whispered, his lips hovering near hers, a prelude to a kiss they both craved but delayed the night's stakes too high. The gala unfolded in a grand ballroom, chandeliers casting prisms of light over a sea of suits and gowns. Employees buzzed with excitement, unaware of the drama poised to erupt. Claire mingled, her smile a shield, but her eyes scanned for Trina, whose absence was a quiet alarm. Daniel, resplendent in a tailored tuxedo, took the stage, his presence commanding. Tonight, we celebrate unity, he began, his voice a velvet cadence that drew every gaze. Claire's heart swelled, sensing his intent, but fear lingered. Trina's note, "You'll never be his," echoed in her mind. Trina arrived late, her crimson dress a bold declaration, her smile a mask of triumph. She'd believed Daniel's ruse, convinced he'd divorced Claire after Sean's staged infidelity. "You're here for me," she purred, sidling up to Daniel, her hand possessive on his arm. Claire's breath caught, but Daniel's eyes found hers, a silent reassurance. He signaled Felipe, his loyal assistant, who dimmed the lights. A screen flickered to life, projecting security footage from the hot springs. Sean's confession, Trina's orders clear as day. Ruin Claire's reputation. Her recorded voice sneered, chilling the room. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Trina's face paled, her elegance crumbling. "It's a lie," she cried, her voice shrill. But Daniel's gaze was steel. "You hired a thug to assault my wife." He said the word wife, a thunderclap. He called Sean forward, now in custody, his testimony damning. "She promised me money to frame Claire," Sean admitted, head bowed. The crowd turned their whispers, a rising tide of judgment. Trina's eyes darted, seeking escape, but Daniel's following words were a guillotine. "Green Enterprises severs all ties with the Hayes Group. Your family's empire ends here." Trina's breakdown was a spectacle of desperation. "I did it for you, Daniel," she screamed, tears streaking her face. "She's a nobody, a country bumpkin who doesn't belong." The racial venom stung Claire, but she stepped forward, her voice a soulful melody. "I belong where love and work call me," she said, her eyes locked on Daniel's. "You judged me by my skin, my roots, but I've earned my place." The crowd applauded their respect, a validation of her journey. Trina lunged, her rage unhinged, but security intervened, escorting her out as she wailed. "You can't do this." Daniel took Claire's hand, his touch a lifeline. He murmured, "I'm sorry you endured her," his eyes pleading forgiveness. Claire's heart softened, the pain of past doubts dissolving in his warmth. The gala resumed, but the air had shifted. Claire was no longer the invisible cleaner, but a force, her blackness, a crown rather than a target. Colleagues approached, offering apologies and admiration. "You're incredible," one said, echoing the sentiment of many. Daniel led Claire to the ballroom's balcony as the night wound down, the valley's stars mirroring their shared dreams. "I should have protected you sooner," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I'll spend my life making it right." Claire's fingers traced his jaw, and her touch was a promise. "We start fresh now," she replied, her voice a jazz note, rich and hopeful. Their lips met in a kiss that tasted of redemption, the world fading as their love crescendoed. Yet a final challenge loomed. Trina's arrest was imminent, but her family's influence lingered, a shadow that could resurface. Daniel planned a public announcement to solidify their union, a declaration to silence all doubters. Claire, her heart alight, agreed, her jazz dreams intertwining with their future. The night ended with a vow to face the world together, their love a melody that would not be silenced. The Hudson Valley's dawn painted the sky in hues of rose and gold, a canvas of hope that mirrored the burgeoning love between Claire Baker and Daniel Green. The final day of Green Enterprises' retreat at Moonview Resort shimmered with promise, the air alive with the scent of pine and the soft hum of anticipation. Claire stood in her villa, her ebony skin radiant in a gown of ivory silk, its elegance a testament to her journey from Kansas fields to Manhattan's heart. The sapphire ring Daniel had given her gleamed openly, now no longer hidden, symbolizing their unveiled love. Once bruised by doubt and betrayal, her heart sang with the certainty of his devotion, a jazz melody soaring toward a triumphant finale. Daniel, his white features softened by love's gentle touch, prepared for the closing ceremony, with a fervor that belied his billionaire composure. Trina Hayes' exposure had cleared the shadows, her family's empire crumbling under the weight of her schemes. Yet Daniel knew their victory was incomplete without a public affirmation of Claire as his wife, a declaration to silence gossip and cement their bond. His emerald eyes, once guarded, now shone with a vulnerability that made Claire's breath catch. "Today, the world knows you're mine," he'd whispered at breakfast, his hand entwining hers, their fingers a perfect harmony. The ceremony unfolded in a grand pavilion, its arches draped in white roses that swayed in the autumn breeze. Employees gathered, their faces alight with curiosity, sensing a historic moment. Claire stood backstage, her heart pounding, her jazz roots grounding her. She recalled her grandmother's tales of Harlem's Renaissance, where black voices rose above prejudice to claim their stage. "This is my stage now," she thought, her resolve a steady rhythm. Daniel took the podium, his presence magnetic, his voice a velvet crescendo. Green Enterprises thrives because of unity. He began his gaze finding Claire. But today, I share a personal truth, the woman who makes my heart sing. The crowd hushed as he beckoned Claire forward. She stepped into the light, her gown flowing like a melody, her dark eyes meeting his with unspoken love. Whispers rippled, some of awe, others of lingering prejudice, but Daniel's voice silenced them. Claire Baker is my wife. He declared, his words a vow that echoed across the valley. She saved my life 3 years ago, and every day since she saved my soul. He recounted the car crash, her courage, their fated marriage. His voice thick with emotion. She's my equal, my partner, my love. Claire's heart swelled, tears glistening like stars. She took the microphone, her voice a soulful jazz note. She said, I came to this city as an outsider, and her words resonated. But love and hard work built my home here. Daniel saw me, not my skin roots or me. The crowd erupted in applause, colleagues who'd once doubted her now cheering her strength. Daniel pulled her close, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that tasted of forever, the pavilion alive with cheers and camera flashes. The moment was a symphony, but Claire added her own flourish. She signaled a local jazz band friends from her weekend gigs, who struck up Ain't Misbehavin', It's Rhythm, a celebration of their union. Claire joined them, her voice soaring, each note a tribute to her heritage and their love. Daniel watched, entranced, his hand never leaving hers. Colleagues danced, the barriers of class and race dissolving in the music's embrace. Even Felipe, the stoic assistant, swayed, his smile wide. As the song ended, Daniel addressed the crowd again. He said that Claire and I dream of a future where talent knows no boundaries. We're launching a jazz scholarship for underrepresented artists to honor her passion and our shared vision. The announcement drew roars of approval, Claire's eyes shining with pride. She envisioned young musicians, black and brown faces like hers, finding their voice. We'll build it together, she whispered to Daniel, her hand resting on his heart. The retreat closed with a feast, tables laden with Southern and Midwestern dishes, a nod to their roots. Claire and Daniel moved among their colleagues, their laughter a duet waiting through the night. Yet a quiet moment found them on a hill overlooking the valley with the stars as a canopy above. I was afraid to love you, Claire admitted, her voice soft. Scared I wasn't enough. Daniel cupped her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. You're everything, he said, his kiss a vow sealed in starlight. Our future starts now. Their love, a melody of resilience and redemption, promised new horizons, a family perhaps, or a legacy of harmony. As they returned to the pavilion, hand in hand, the crowd's cheers were a chorus of hope. Claire's jazz dreams, once silenced, now soared, a testament to love's power to transcend all divides.